Adrian Vale had
Watch
built
her
his
constantly,
empire on
Damian.
one belief.
Do not let
A
her out of
man
your
who
sight.
controlled his emotions could control anything else. For years, the Don of California's most powerful criminal organization had remained untouchable. Feared by rivals and respected by those who worked beneath him, his decisions were always calculated. His weaknesses were carefully hidden. That was why everyone inside the Vale organization noticed when Adrian gave Damian Cross an order unlike any before: protect Vivienne Hartwell. No explanation, no details about the threat, no background information, only one command: keep her safe. Damian had spent years as Adrian's most trusted bodyguard because he understood one simple truth: orders existed for a reason. He did not question them. He did not become emotionally involved. His job was to stand between danger and the person he was assigned to protect. But Vivienne Hartwell was different. She did not behave like someone who needed saving. When Damian first met her at Adrian's private oceanfront estate, he expected fear, confusion, or desperation. Instead, he found a woman who looked at powerful men as if she could see beyond their reputation. The estate itself reflected Adrian's world perfectly. The endless coastline, carefully maintained gardens, and breathtaking views of the Pacific Ocean created an image of peace and elegance. Yet beneath the luxury existed a world built on secrets, loyalty, and hidden enemies. Vivienne moved through that world without surrendering to it. She was intelligent, composed, and strangely fearless. While others lowered their voices around Adrian Vale, Vivienne questioned decisions and noticed details most people ignored. She carried herself like someone who had survived difficult years and refused to let those experiences break her. Damian quickly realized the woman he was protecting was not fragile. She was carrying something. The more he watched her, the more questions appeared. Why did Adrian personally involve himself in her safety? Why assign his most loyal protector instead of an entire security team? And why did the Don, a man who rarely showed concern for anyone, look at Vivienne as if losing her would cost him more than his empire? Damian tried to ignore those questions. He reminded himself that curiosity was dangerous. Attachment was worse. A bodyguard could not afford to care. But every rule Damian had followed for years began to feel less certain when he saw the truth behind Vivienne's strength. Her confidence was not arrogance. It was survival. Behind her calm expression was a woman who had spent years carrying a burden she refused to share. For the first time, Damian wondered if his mission was not only about protecting Vivienne from enemies. Perhaps Adrian was protecting her from a truth even more dangerous. Late one evening, while reviewing security records of the estate, Damian noticed an unusual file hidden inside Adrian's private system. The document carried Vivienne's name and a security classification reserved only for the most sensitive matters. When Damian opened it, he found a single sentence that changed everything. Vivienne Hartwell was not just someone Adrian Vale wanted protected. She was the secret his entire empire had been built around. Damian Cross had spent his entire life learning one important lesson. Secrets were often more dangerous than weapons. A weapon could be seen, a threat could be stopped, but a hidden truth could destroy everything before anyone realized there was a battle. After discovering Vivienne Hartwell's classified file inside Adrian Vale's private system, Damian could no longer look at his mission the same way. The woman he had been ordered to protect was not simply connected to a dangerous situation. She was connected to something powerful enough that Adrian had personally buried the information, and that was what bothered Damian most. Adrian Vale trusted him with his life, but apparently not with the truth. Still, Damian continued his assignment. He followed Vivienne's movements, monitored every possible threat, and maintained the emotional distance that had kept him alive for years. He had protected politicians, businessmen, and powerful figures before, but none of them had made him question his own instincts. Vivienne was different. She did not behave like someone afraid of the world around her. She studied people carefully, remembered details others ignored, and carried herself with the confidence of someone who had already survived something painful. Damian expected to find weakness. Instead, he found strength. When Adrian moved Vivienne to his private mountain lodge, Damian believed the isolated location would reveal more about her intentions. The lodge stood high among California's mountains, surrounded by endless forests, rocky cliffs, and narrow roads where strangers could easily be detected before reaching the property. It was beautiful, But Damian knew beautiful places could hide ugly truths. The lodge had protected the Vale family for generations. Many powerful decisions had been made behind those wooden walls, away from the outside world. Now, Vivienne had become another secret inside them. During their stay, Damian noticed that Vivienne knew things she should not know. She recognized old family names connected to Adrian's organization. She understood references to events that had never appeared in public records. She even knew details about her own family history that Damian had never seen in official files. The more he observed her, the more one question followed him. Who had prepared Vivienne for this world? One evening, Damian found her examining old documents connected to the Hartwell family. For years, Vivienne had searched for answers about her father's disappearance and the reason her family's influence had suddenly vanished. She believed someone had erased parts of her past. Damian understood the feeling. In Adrian's world, people rarely destroyed the truth completely. They buried it under enough lies that nobody would ever think to dig deeper. That realization changed something inside him. For the first time, Damian was not only protecting Vivienne from danger, he wanted to protect her from the pain of discovering why that danger existed. Then the warnings began. Anonymous messages appeared through the lodge security system. Old photographs connected to Vivienne's family arrived without explanation. Hidden files were accessed from unknown locations. Someone was watching her. Someone knew she was getting closer to the truth. Damian increased security immediately, but one detail disturbed him more than anything else. The person behind the warnings was not trying to stop Vivienne from learning the truth. They were trying to make sure she discovered it at the right time. While investigating the source of the messages, Damian uncovered a hidden record showing Adrian had known about Vivienne's past long before he assigned protection mission. And the truth inside that record forced Damian to question the one person he had trusted above everyone else. Adrian Vale had not just been hiding Vivienne's secret. He had been hiding it from Damian. Damian Cross had followed Adrian Vale into situations where most men would never survive. He had protected the Don during dangerous negotiations, stood beside him when enemies turned into threats, and carried out every order without hesitation. Because loyalty was never something Damian questioned. Until now, finding proof that Adrian knew about Vivienne's past changed everything. The man Damian trusted most had made a decision without giving him the complete truth. And for the first time, Damian wondered whether he had been protecting Vivienne or protecting Adrian's secret. The answers led him away from the quiet mountains and into the heart of New York City. Adrian's private club stood among the city's most exclusive buildings, hidden behind luxury and influence. Inside, wealthy businessmen, politicians, and powerful figures gathered beneath expensive lighting and elegant decorations, unaware that conversations happening behind closed doors controlled entire industries. It was the kind of place where secrets were more valuable than money. Damian entered the club searching for answers, not knowing that every step would challenge everything he believed about loyalty. The information he uncovered revealed that Vivienne's family had once been connected to an old enemy of Adrian's organization. Years earlier, a conflict had forced powerful families to choose sides, and Vivienne had unknowingly inherited the consequences of those decisions. But Adrian's reason for protecting her was not what Damian expected. The Don was not keeping Vivienne close because he wanted to control her. He was protecting her because he knew someone else wanted to destroy her. Adrian had chosen Damian because he trusted him more than anyone else. He believed Damian's discipline and loyalty were the only things strong enough to keep Vivienne alive. But Adrian's mistake was believing trust could survive without honesty. Damian felt betrayed, not because Adrian gave him a difficult mission, because he gave him an incomplete one. For years, Damian believed loyalty meant following orders no matter what. But now he began questioning whether true loyalty required understanding the reason behind those orders. Vivienne noticed a change in him. She saw that Damian was no longer simply protecting her. He was struggling with his own place in Adrian's world. For the first time, she understood that the bodyguard who appeared fearless was carrying his own hidden wounds. They were different people trapped by the same powerful forces. Vivienne had spent years searching for the truth about her past. Damian had spent years following orders without questioning his own future. That shared understanding slowly brought them closer. But danger was moving faster than either of them realized. An enemy faction connected to Adrian's old rivals began making quiet moves. Financial accounts were accessed. Trusted people disappeared from meetings. Information that should have remained hidden started appearing in the wrong hands. And everyone reached the same conclusion. Vivienne was the easiest way to hurt Adrian Vale. If his enemies could control her, they could weaken the Don without ever confronting him directly. Damian prepared himself for the coming threat. But he soon discovered something far more disturbing than an enemy attack. A hidden message appeared on his personal device, containing information only Adrian and Damian should have known. The message contained one sentence that changed everything. Vivienne Hartwell was never the enemy's real target. Damian Cross was. Damian Cross had always believed his purpose was simple. Protect the person he was assigned to protect. Follow the order given. Never allow emotions to interfere. Those rules had kept him alive. They had made him Adrian Vale's most trusted bodyguard. But rules were easy to follow when there was nothing personal at stake. Vivienne Hartwell changed that. After discovering that enemies were targeting Damian instead of Vivienne, he understood that the danger surrounding her was connected to something much deeper than anyone realized. She was not simply caught in Adrian's world. She was the reason powerful people were willing to destroy everything around them. Adrian moved quickly, sending them away from New York before the enemy could make another move. Their destination was a private desert resort outside Las Vegas, a place owned by trusted allies and hidden from ordinary attention. The location was surrounded by endless golden desert, distant mountains, and empty roads stretching for miles. During the day, it looked peaceful. At night, the silence became unsettling. Damian knew places like this had one advantage. No one could approach without being noticed, but he also knew isolation could become a trap. From the moment they arrived, Damian noticed Vivienne was different. She no longer looked at him as just Adrian's employee. She saw the man behind protection, the man who never rested, the man who carried responsibility for everyone around him but never allowed anyone to carry his own burdens. For years, Damian had convinced himself that emotions created weakness. Caring about someone gave enemies something to use against him. But protecting Vivienne forced him to question that belief. Because every time danger appeared, his first thought was no longer about completing the mission. It was about making sure she was safe. The attack came just after sunset. A group connected to Adrian's enemies breached the outer security perimeter, using the isolated desert roads to approach without warning. The resort's defenses slowed them down, but Damian immediately understood the real objective. They were not there for Adrian's resources. They were there for Vivienne. Damian followed his instincts without waiting for permission. He moved her away from danger, using every skill he had developed over years of protecting others. But this time was different. This time, he was not protecting client. He was protecting someone he could not imagine losing. Vivienne saw the difference. She saw that Damian's actions were no longer controlled by duty alone. Every decision came from something deeper, something he had spent years trying to avoid. When the threat was finally contained, Adrian arrived and immediately understood what had happened. The Don had always respected Damian because he was disciplined, controlled, impossible to manipulate. But now Adrian saw the one thing that could make Damian vulnerable, his feelings for Vivienne. Adrian did not question Damian's loyalty. He questioned whether Damian could continue protecting her when his heart was involved. That night, Damian stood alone outside the resort, looking across the endless desert while realizing something he never wanted to admit. The greatest danger was no longer the enemy. It was the fact that Vivienne had become someone worth risking everything for. And before sunrise, Adrian delivered an order that Damian knew he might not be able to follow, an order that would force him to walk away from Vivienne forever. For Damian Cross, loyalty had never been a simple choice. It was the foundation of everything he had become. Before Vivienne Hartwell entered his life, Damian knew exactly who he was. He was Adrian Vale's protector, the man who followed orders without hesitation, the person Adrian trusted when everyone else had failed. But now the same loyalty that had given Damian purpose was forcing him to lose the one person who had changed him. Adrian's order was clear: leave Vivienne. Distance himself before his emotions became a weakness that enemies could exploit. For the first time in years, Damian found himself unable to obey. After leaving the desert resort, he was sent to Adrian's private island estate, a secluded property surrounded by endless ocean and protected by distance from the outside world. The peaceful blue waters and quiet beaches created a strange contrast to the storm inside Damian's mind. The island was beautiful, but Damian felt trapped, away from Vivienne. He realized something that frightened him more than any enemy. He had spent his entire life protecting people because it was his duty, but Vivienne was the first person he wanted to protect because she mattered to him. There was a difference, and that difference changed everything. While Damian struggled with Adrian's decision, Vivienne refused to remain passive. She began searching through the information she had collected about her family and Adrian's organization. She knew something was wrong. The attacks against him were too precise. The enemy always seemed to know their movements before they happened. Someone was not simply watching Adrian's empire. Someone inside it was opening the doors. Vivienne discovered financial records connected to several companies controlled by Adrian's trusted associates. The pattern was subtle, hidden behind years of transactions and carefully created paperwork. But the truth was clear. Someone close to Adrian had been secretly weakening the organization from within. Vivienne understood the danger immediately. This was not just about money or power. A betrayal from inside the empire could destroy everyone who had spent years protecting Adrian, including Damian. When Vivienne realized Damian was being kept away from the investigation, she knew Adrian's order was not only about discipline. It was about fear. The Don feared that Damian's feelings would affect his decisions. But Vivienne understood something Adrian did not. Damian's feelings were not making him weaker. They were making him fight harder. That was when Damian returned. He knew coming back meant breaking Adrian's command. He knew it could cost him his position, his trust, and the life he had built. But leaving Vivienne alone while danger surrounded her was something he could no longer accept. When he arrived, there was no dramatic apology or explanation, only the quiet understanding between two people who had both realized that some choices could not be undone. For the first time, Damian was not standing beside Vivienne because Adrian ordered him to. He was there because he chose to be. Together, they followed the evidence and uncovered the beginning of a betrayal that reached deeper than they expected. The person responsible was not an outsider. It was someone Adrian had trusted for years. Someone who knew every weakness of the Vale Empire. And before Damian could reveal the truth to Adrian, the traitor sent him a final message containing one warning. They possessed information powerful enough to destroy Adrian Vale, Damian Cross, and everyone who had ever stood beside them. The most dangerous enemy Adrian Vale had ever faced was not waiting outside his walls. He was already inside them. For years, Adrian had built his empire around one powerful belief. Loyalty was earned through time, trust, and shared battles. The people closest to him had survived because they understood his vision and protected his interests. But now, Damian and Vivienne had uncovered the truth that threatened everything Adrian had built. The person trying to destroy him was not a rival leader, not an outside enemy. It was someone who had stood beside him for years. After receiving the traitor's message, Adrian gathered Damian and Vivienne at his forest estate. The property was surrounded by towering trees, quiet trails, and miles of private land. Under normal circumstances, the peaceful surroundings represented security. Now they represented uncertainty, because the greatest threat was not approaching the estate. It was already somewhere within Adrian's trusted circle. For the first time, Adrian allowed Damian and Vivienne access to information he had always kept hidden. The Don understood that control alone could no longer protect him. Keeping everyone separated had created the perfect environment for betrayal. The investigation revealed a pattern that had been developing for years. Financial movements had been altered. Private meetings had been manipulated. Important decisions had been influenced by carefully placed information. The traitor had never attacked Adrian directly. They had slowly weakened him from within. Damian studied every record with the same discipline he had used throughout his career. But this time, he was not searching for a threat to remove. He was searching for the person responsible for hurting the man he once considered impossible to betray. Adrian noticed a change in him. Damian was no longer simply a soldier following orders. He had become someone who made his own choices. And despite everything that had happened, Adrian respected that. Because true loyalty was not proven by obedience. It was proven when someone had the freedom to leave and still chose to stay. Vivienne also changed during the investigation. At the beginning, she had been the woman everyone wanted to protect, a person connected to dangerous secrets and surrounded by powerful men. Now she stood beside them as an equal. Her knowledge of her family history, her ability to recognize hidden patterns, and her determination became essential to uncovering the truth. She was no longer just part of the mystery. She was part of the solution. As the evidence continued to build, they discovered betrayal reached closer than anyone expected. The person behind it had access to Adrian's private operations, his security systems, and even information about Vivienne's family. Someone had known about her long before she entered Adrian's world. Someone had been waiting for the perfect moment to use her connection against him. The final pieces of the investigation pointed toward one name, a person Adrian had trusted more than almost anyone, a person who had been there during his hardest years. Before Adrian could confront the traitor, a message appeared on the estate security system. It contained no threat, no demand, only a single piece of information about Vivienne's family history that made everyone stop. Because the secret hidden inside the message revealed that Vivienne's past was not just connected to Adrian's empire, it was the reason the entire war had started. Damian Cross had spent his entire life protecting others, but now, for the first time, he was protecting someone knowing the cause could be everything he had built, his position, his reputation, his place beside Adrian Vale. After discovering the truth about Vivienne's family and the betrayal hidden inside Adrian's organization, there was no longer any room for hesitation. The enemy had planned every move carefully, using secret from the past to destroy the present, and their final move would happen in front of the entire world. The confrontation began during one of Manhattan's most prestigious charity events. The elegant ballroom was filled with powerful executives, influential families, politicians, and members of Adrian's legitimate business network. Crystal lights reflected across expensive decorations. Cameras captured every important guest. To everyone watching from the outside, it appeared to be a night of generosity and success. But Damian knew better. Danger often arrived wearing a perfect disguise. Behind the luxury and celebration, the enemy was preparing to expose Adrian's empire. Their plan was simple: release carefully selected information, create public chaos, and make it appear that Adrian had built everything through corruption and betrayal. The truth was more complicated, but in a world where reputation could be destroyed in seconds, the truth was not always enough. Vivienne understood the danger immediately. The information being released did not only threaten Adrian, it threatened innocent people connected to his organization, including employees and families who had nothing to do with the hidden conflicts of the past. Damian knew what he had to do. The safest choice would have been to step away. If he protected his own position, he could survive whatever happened next. But that was no longer the man Vivienne had changed him into. He had spent years believing emotions made people weak. Now, he understood something different. The right person did not become a weakness. The right person became the reason someone discovered their strength. When the enemy activated their plan, Damian moved before anyone else understood what was happening. He exposed the manipulation behind the information, protected Vivienne from being used as a weapon, and accepted the consequences of standing against powerful people. Everyone watching saw the same thing. Adrian's most loyal bodyguard had chosen a woman over an empire, but Adrian saw something else. He saw the loyalty that existed beyond obedience. Damian was not betraying him. He was protecting what Adrian had spent years trying to preserve. For the first time, the Don understood that loyalty could not be demanded through fear or authority. It had to be earned through trust. The final confrontation ended with the enemy's plans collapsing. The evidence they collected was enough to expose a betrayal and protect those who had been targeted. But the emotional battle was not over. After everything they had survived, Damian and Vivienne finally stopped pretending their connection was only about danger and protection. They had chosen each other when there was no guarantee of safety, no promise of an easy future, only trust. As the night ended, Adrian stood alone overlooking the city, knowing the empire he built could never return to the way it was before. The old rules had protected him, but they had also created the space for betrayal. And before the next morning arrived, Adrian made a decision that would change the future of the Vale Empire forever. Adrian Vale had spent years believing power was the only thing that could keep him safe. Control, fear, authority. Those were the tools that built his empire and protected everything he owned. But after betrayal, the attacks, and the truth surrounding Vivienne's family, Adrian finally understood the one thing he had ignored for too long. An empire could be built with power, but it could only survive through trust. The months after the conflict changed everything. The Vale organization was no longer the same. Adrian removed the people who had used loyalty as a mask for personal ambition and rebuilt his operations around a different foundation. He no longer measured people by how useful they were. He measured them by whether they could be trusted when there was nothing to gain. The transformation began at Adrian's private vineyard estate in Northern California. Surrounded by peaceful fields, green hills, and quiet morning skies, the property represented everything his old life had never allowed him to experience. Peace. For years, Adrian had looked at beautiful places as locations to secure, defend, or control. Now, for the first time, he allowed himself to simply exist there. The man who once feared vulnerability slowly learned that vulnerability was not always a weakness. Sometimes it was the only way to create something real. Damian Cross also changed. He was no longer just Adrian Vale's bodyguard. The role that had defined his entire life was no longer the only thing that gave him purpose. For years, Damian believed his value came from following orders and protecting others from the shadows. But Vivienne showed him something different. He did not need to disappear behind duty to matter. He could choose. And for the first time, Damian chose a future that belonged to him. His relationship with Vivienne was no longer built around danger, secrets, or survival. There were no orders from Adrian, no mission requiring them to stay together, only a decision they made willingly. Vivienne, the woman who once needed protection from a world she did not understand, became the person who helped Damian understand himself. She saw the man behind the discipline, the person behind the silence, the heart behind the armor. Their connection was not created because they were trapped together by circumstances. It survived because they were finally free to walk away and still chose each other. Adrian watched that change from a distance. He had lost the perfect soldier who followed every command, but he gained something far more valuable, a person who stayed because he wanted to. For the first time, Adrian understood that family was not always created by blood or inherited through a name. Sometimes it was created by the people who stood beside you when everything else was falling apart. As the vineyard settled into a new chapter, everyone believed the danger was finally behind them. The empire had survived. The betrayal had ended. The past had been buried. But one evening, while reviewing old records from the Vale archives, Adrian discovered a sealed message that had been hidden for years. The sender's name was unfamiliar. The date was impossible. And the final line revealed a truth that meant the past was not finished. Adrian Vale had solved one mystery, but the secret waiting inside his own history had only just begun.